The MITVCUMEs reality. Archivist Veloxy stood motionless before the massive observation window, all four of her eye stalks focused intently on the charcoal-gray vessel hanging against the backdrop of stars. The ship's angular design, all harsh lines and intimidating protrusions, contrasted sharply with the organic flowing architecture of Selenian spacecraft. "Well?" High Commander Thraz demanded, his scales shimmering with anxiety. "Is it really what you claim?" Veloxy's membranes flickered in excitement. "There's no doubt, Commander. The configuration matches the ancient texts perfectly." She gestured toward the vessel with a trembling appendage. "That is a human warship." A ripple of disbelief passed through the command center. The other Selenians exchanged skeptical glances, their skin patterns shifting through hues of doubt and concern. "Humans are bedtime stories." Communications Director Philax objected, voice quavering despite his attempt at certainty. "Tales we tell hatchlings to encourage proper logical development. Think clearly or end up aggressive and unpredictable like the mythical humans." Veloxy turned from the window. "Then explain that ship, Director. Explain the transmissions we've intercepted in a language that perfectly matches the linguistic patterns described in the archives of forbearance." High Commander Thraz raised his primary arms for silence. "Has the vessel made any aggressive movements?" "No, Commander," the tactical officer replied. "It's maintaining position at the edge of our defense grid. They've been broadcasting on multiple frequencies, but we haven't responded yet." "And what do these broadcasts say?" Thraz asked. Veloxy cleared her throat. "Standard first contact protocols, requesting communication. They identify themselves as the United Earth ship Dauntless." The command center fell silent. Even the background hum of the life support systems seemed to fade as the implications settled over the assembled Selenians. "Impossible," Thraz whispered, but without conviction. "The archives of forbearance state that humans disappeared from galactic records approximately 4,000 cycles ago," Veloxy continued. "The texts never claimed extinction, merely absence." Thraz's scales flickered with rapid calculations. If they truly exist, why appear now? Why here, at the furthest reaches of Selenian space? Before anyone could speculate, the tactical station erupted with alerts. The officers' appendages moved frantically across the control surfaces. "Commander, multiple spatial ruptures detected at the system's edge." The main view screen shifted to show a dozen tiers in space, each disgorging a vessel unlike either Selenian or human design. These ships were obsidian black, with surfaces that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "Identify," Thraz commanded. "Unknown configuration." The tactical officer responded. "No match in our databases. They're deploying in attack formation and accelerating toward our position." The communications console chimed urgently. "Commander, we're receiving a direct transmission from the human vessel." Thraz hesitated only briefly. On screen, the display shifted to reveal a face that sent shudders through every Selenian present. The creature possessed only 2 eyes, no scales, and bizarre fibrous growths on its head. Despite everything in Veloxy's scholarly preparation, seeing an actual human was profoundly unsettling. "This is Captain Maya Chen of the UES Dauntless," the human said, its flat teeth visible as it spoke. "Selenian vessel, those ships are void harvesters. They're here to strip your world and consume your population. We've encountered them before. Request immediate tactical coordination." Thraz and Veloxy exchanged glances. "How do we know you're not allied with them?" Thraz demanded. The human's expression changed. "If we were allies, Commander, your system would already be lost. The harvesters give no warnings. We tracked them here, hoping to intercept before they reached an inhabited system." The human leaned closer to whatever visual sensor they were using. "You have approximately 12 minutes before their vanguard is within weapons range of your orbital defenses." Tactical confirmed the analysis, and Thraz's scales paled. "What do you propose, human?" "Share your defense grid specifications. We'll coordinate our shield harmonics and weapons frequencies to maximize effectiveness. The human's face remained unnervingly still, and I suggest you evacuate any non-essential personnel from your orbital platforms. Thraz gave the order to comply, though his ancestral instincts screamed against trusting a creature of legend, especially one whose species was synonymous with unpredictability in Selenian culture. As the tactical data transferred between vessels, Veloxy moved closer to the commander. "The archives mention human ingenuity in combat situations," she whispered. "If the stories are true, we may have a chance. And if they're false," Thraz replied. Veloxy's eye stalks oriented toward the approaching harvesters. "Then our civilization becomes another disappearance in someone else's archives." The next hour unfolded in a chaos of light, destruction, and desperation. The Void Harvesters struck with terrifying precision, their weapons bypassing Selenian shields as if they didn't exist. 3 orbital platforms were lost in the initial assault, vaporized with all hands aboard. But the human vessel moved unlike anything Veloxy had ever seen. The Dauntless danced through harvester formations, its weapons finding vulnerabilities that Selenian sensors couldn't even detect. For every Selenian ship lost, the human vessel helped destroy 2 harvesters. It wasn't enough. "Our primary defense platform is failing," the tactical officer reported, voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Estimated collapse in 8 minutes. Thraz turned to the communication screen, where Captain Chen's face appeared significantly less composed than before. A gash across her forehead leaked red fluid, and smoke filled the background of her command center. "We can't hold them off conventionally," the human said. "Permission to attempt something unconventional." "Elaborate," Thraz demanded. "We modify our FTL drive to create a localized implosion. It'll pull the harvesters into subspace momentarily, long enough for your remaining vessels to target their propulsion systems when they reappear." "And your ship?" Veloxy asked. The human's mouth formed what the archivist recognized from her studies as a smile, though it contained no joy. "We'll be at ground zero. It's not optimal for us." Thraz's scales rippled with conflict. "You would sacrifice yourselves for a species you've just encountered." "The harvesters have consumed 12 human colonies," Chen replied. "We're not doing this just for you." Before Thraz could respond, the tactical station erupted again. New contact. Massive spatial rupture at the system's edge. All eyes turned to the view screen, where a tear in space had appeared, far larger than those that had heralded the harvester's arrival. From this wound, in reality, emerged a vessel of such magnitude that Veloxy's breath caught in her throat. It was unmistakably human in design, but dwarfed the Dauntless by orders of magnitude. Its hull bore scars of countless battles, yet it moved with the same impossible grace as its smaller counterpart. "The UES reckoning," Captain Chen breathed, her expression transformed by what Veloxy could only interpret as awe. "You knew they were coming?" Thraz demanded. "No," Chen replied. "They were supposed to be on the other side of the sector. That's Admiral Caftry's flagship." The massive human vessel unleashed a barrage that tore through 3 harvesters simultaneously. The battle's momentum shifted instantly. "All Selenian vessels," a new human voice boomed over the communication channels, "coordinate with the Dauntless. Target these frequencies." Data streamed into the Selenian tactical systems, frequencies, harmonics, and firing solutions that made little sense to Veloxy, but which the tactical officers implemented immediately. When the Selenian weapons fired again, the harvesters' shields faltered. Within 20 minutes, the battle was over. The remaining harvesters attempted to flee, but coordinated fire from human and Selenian vessels ensured none escaped. The aftermath brought a different kind of tension. With the harvesters destroyed, the Selenians found themselves facing 2 human warships, vessels belonging to a species they'd believed mythological hours earlier. The command center of the Selenian station now hosted visitors. Captain Chen stood with 2 officers, facing High Commander Thraz, Archivist Veloxy, and the Selenian Leadership Council. Despite the human's smaller stature, there was something distinctly imposing about her presence. "You have our gratitude," Thraz began formally, but many questions remain. Chen nodded. "I understand your caution. 4,000 years is a long time to be absent from galactic affairs. The archives of forbearance describe humans as dangerously unpredictable," Veloxi said. "Yet your tactics saved our world. The contradiction is significant." "Your archives aren't wrong," Chen replied. "We are unpredictable. It's kept us alive." She hesitated. 4 millennia ago, humanity encountered a species we call the Architects. They claimed to have seeded life throughout the galaxy, guiding evolution toward specific traits. They found our unpredictability problematic. They removed you from the galactic stage. Veloxi whispered, pieces falling into place. "They tried," Chen corrected. "They created a dimensional pocket, a bubble of altered space-time, and pushed Earth into it. We were meant to develop in isolation, unaware of other intelligent life." Something like pride crossed her features. "It took us 3,800 years to break free." "And the harvesters?" Thraz asked. "A cleanup crew," one of Chen's officers interjected. "The Architects' experiments sometimes go wrong. The harvesters eliminate the failures." Silence fell over the assembled leaders as the implications settled. "If what you say is true," Thraz said slowly, "then the Selenians are also an experiment." "Everyone is," Chen replied. "Different species designed with different traits. The Architects were playing the longest game, creating civilizations that would eventually complement each other. Your logic and our adaptability. The Caceres' technological aptitude, and the Morrigan's biological mastery. You've contacted other species since your emergence?" Veloxi asked. 7 so far, Chen confirmed. All were familiar with humanity as legend or cautionary tale. The Architects were thorough in erasing us from history, but not thorough enough. Thraz's scales shifted to a deep blue of contemplation. "And these Architects, where are they now?" For the first time, uncertainty crossed Chen's face. "We don't know. Their technology remains scattered throughout the galaxy, but we found no trace of the beings themselves. It's as if they simply left, or something removed them," Veloxi suggested, as they attempted to remove humanity. Chen's expression hardened. "That's what we intend to find out." She straightened her posture. "High Commander, I'm authorized to offer the Selenian Confederation membership in the Emergent Alliance, species working together to understand what happened to the Architects and why we were all created." "And if we decline?" Thraz asked. "Then we share what we know about the harvesters and leave you to your own devices," Chen replied simply. "We're not conquerors, Commander, despite what your bedtime stories might suggest." Veloxi moved forward, eye stalks fixed on the human. "The archives describe humanity as dangerous, but they also describe your species as fiercely protective of allies. The stories say that once humans consider you their own, they would challenge the gods themselves to keep you safe." Chen's expression softened slightly. "Your archives have good sources." Thraz consulted silently with the Leadership Council, their scales shifting through patterns of deliberation. Finally, he turned back to Chen. "The Selenian Confederation accepts your offer of alliance. We will add our logical precision to your adaptability." "Welcome to a much larger universe, Commander," Chen replied, extending her hand in what Veloxi recognized as a human greeting gesture. After a moment's hesitation, Thraz extended his primary appendage to meet it. As the formalities concluded and the humans prepared to return to their vessels, Veloxi approached Captain Chen privately. "Captain, there's something I don't understand. You said the Architects created these dimensional pockets to isolate species. How did the harvesters find us?" Chen's expression darkened. "That's what worries us, Archivist. Something or someone is systematically collapsing the dimensional boundaries. Species that were never meant to meet are suddenly in contact. The question isn't just who's doing it, but why." Veloxi finished. Chen nodded grimly. Exactly. And whether humanity's escape from isolation was truly our own doing, or if someone let us out for a purpose we don't yet understand. The alliance of AMPOSIBILIT. 3 standard cycles had passed since the Battle of Selenia, as it was now being called throughout the sector. The human vessels remained in orbit, their presence both reassurance and lingering source of unease for the planet's population. Recordings of the human ships in combat had spread across Selenian networks, transforming the mythical species from bedtime stories into flesh and blood saviors overnight. Archivist Veloxy had hardly slept since first contact. Every waking moment was devoted to comparing the ancient texts with the reality of humanity. She had been granted unprecedented access to the human vessels and their crews, a cultural exchange that left her reeling with new insights daily. Today, she stood in Engineering Bay 3 of the massive human flagship Reckoning, watching Chief Engineer Tamir Okafor manipulate a holographic display of what the humans called a dimensional anchor. The principles aren't that different from your own FTL technology, Okafor explained, his dark hands moving deftly through the projection. You just never push the quantum fields to collapse point, because doing so would be illogical, Veloxy replied, eye stalks tracking the equations flowing around the display. Our simulation showed a 98.7% probability of catastrophic implosion. Okafor laughed, a sound Veloxy was still getting accustomed to. Selenians expressed amusement through color patterns, not vocalizations. That's where humans and Selenians differ. Archivist. When we hit a 98.7% failure probability, we focus on the 1.3% success rate and figure out how to expand it. A remarkably inefficient approach, Veloxy observed, though without judgment. Inefficient, sure, Okafor conceded, but it got us here, didn't it? Broke us out of the architect's bubble and back into the galaxy. Before Veloxy could respond, her communication implant chimed with High Commander Thraz's signature. Archivist, your presence is requested in Briefing Chamber 1 immediately. Captain Chen and Admiral Ketri will be attending. The urgency in Thraz's tone sent a ripple of concern through Veloxy's chromatophores. Something has happened, she told Okafor, already moving toward the exit. The engineer nodded grimly. I've got the same call from my superiors. Let's go. Briefing Chamber 1 had been converted into a joint command center, with human and Selenian technology integrated in ways that would have been unthinkable weeks earlier. When Veloxy and Okafor arrived, the chamber was already filled with senior officers from both species. Admiral Ketri stood at the central display, her weathered face grave. Unlike Captain Chen's more diplomatic approach, the Admiral exuded the confidence of someone accustomed to making life-or-death decisions daily. Beside her, High Commander Thraz's scales had taken on the deep crimson of extreme concern. Now that everyone's here, Ketri began without preamble, we can address the situation. 18 hours ago, our long-range scouts detected a massive energy surge from the Calyptus Void, a region previously believed uninhabited. The display shifted to show readings that caused Veloxy's scientific training to override her composure. That energy signature, she breathed. It matches the theoretical output of an architect installation. Exactly, Ketri confirmed. But it gets more interesting. She gestured, and the display zoomed out to show a wider stellar region. We've detected similar energy spikes across 14 systems, forming this pattern. The displayed systems, when connected, formed an unmistakable geometric pattern, concentric hexagons with precise angular measurements between each point. It's a key, Captain Chen said from her position near the wall. A dimensional key. For what? Thraz asked. We believe it's the final sequence to collapse all remaining dimensional bubbles simultaneously, Ketri replied. Based on our analysis, there are at least 26 more species being held in isolation, just as humanity was. Veloxy's mind raced. The ancient records mention a great convergence, a time when all the architect's creations would be judged worthy or unworthy of continuation. Judged by whom? Okafor asked. The texts don't specify, Veloxi admitted. They only say that those who remain shall inherit the mantle of creation. Admiral Catri's expression hardened. Well, we're not waiting around to be judged. The Reckoning and 3 additional battlecruisers will depart for the Calyptus Void in 6 hours. We intend to shut down whatever mechanism is being activated. With respect, Admiral, Fraz interjected, you cannot possibly know what you'll be facing. If this truly is an architect installation, then we'll deal with it, Chatri cut him off. Humanity spent 4 millennia trapped in a bubble universe. We're not letting that happen to anyone else, and we're certainly not submitting to some cosmic judgment. A tense silence fell over the chamber. Finally, Thraz's scales shifted to a determined azure. The Selenian Defense Force will join you, he declared. Our logical approach combined with your creativity may provide advantages neither would have alone. For the first time since Veloxi had met her, Admiral Catri smiled. That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say, Commander. The journey to the Calyptus Void required 3 FTL jumps, each pushing the integrated fleet's technology to its limits. 5 human vessels led the way, with 12 Selenian ships following in precise formation. The humans called it Operation Lockpick, a term Veloxi found inappropriately flippant for a mission that might determine the fate of intelligent life in the galaxy. She stood on the bridge of the Reckoning alongside Chief Engineer Okafor, watching as the fleet emerged from its final jump. The view screen showed nothing but empty space. No planets, no stars, nothing to suggest the massive energy readings they had detected. Scans are complete, the human sensor officer announced. No physical structures detected, but dimensional distortion is off the charts. Whatever's here exists partially outside normal spacetime. Just like the bubble Earth was trapped in, Captain Chen murmured. Admiral Catri turned to Okafor. Chief, is the dimensional anchor ready? Yes, Admiral, but I should note that we've never tested it on something this scale. The calculations were completed with Selenian assistance. Chatri finished for him. I have faith in both our species' capabilities. Chief, proceed. Okafor nodded and began the activation sequence. Around them, the integrated fleet moved into a formation that Veloxi recognized from ancient diagrams, a 3-dimensional representation of the same hexagonal pattern they had observed across the galaxy. Energy buildup detected. The sensor officer reported. Something's responding to our presence. The emptiness before them shifted. There was no other word for it. Space itself seemed to fold, revealing glimpses of something massive beyond. A structure of impossible geometry that hurt Veloxi's eyes to observe directly. By the first thinkers, Fraz whispered from the communication screen, "It's real. All vessels, hold formation," Chatri commanded. Dimensional anchor at 70%. A new voice suddenly filled the bridge. Neither human nor Selenian, but something ancient and multi-toned, as if multiple entities spoke as one. Convergency sequence INITIATE. Final evaluation of experimental VGCTs commencing. Screens throughout the bridge flickered with images. Dozens of different species, some recognizable to Veloxi from the ancient records, others completely unknown. All appeared to be in various states of technological advancement, and all were clearly unaware they were being observed. They're still in bubbles, Chen realized. Isolated experiments, just like we were. Human presence DTTTD. Anomalous freedom REGISTRED. Recapture protocols engaged. The ship shuddered violently. Warning alarms blared across the bridge. They're trying to push us back into a bubble, Okafor shouted, fingers flying across his control panel. The anchor is destabilizing. Admiral Catri's voice cut through the chaos. All vessels, initiate countermeasure Theta 6. Now. Throughout the fleet, Selenian and human ships activated specialized equipment that had been hastily assembled during the journey. The devices generated overlapping fields designed to reinforce normal space against dimensional manipulation, a theory developed jointly by scientists from both species in the days following the Battle of Selenia. "It's working," the tactical officer reported. "Dimensional pressure decreasing." The voice returned, now tinged with something that sounded disturbingly like confusion. "Anomalous resistance DTKT. CELIN and human cooperation UNP RECEDENT. Reevaluating parameters." Veloxi stepped forward. "We need to communicate with it. The ancient records suggest the architect's systems are semi-sentient but can be reasoned with." "Worth a try," Chatri agreed. "Open a channel on all frequencies." When confirmation came, Veloxi spoke clearly. "Architect Intelligence, this is Archivist Veloxi of the Selenian Confederation. We request cessation of the convergence sequence. Sentient species have the right to self-determination." A pause, then. "Experimentes do not determine their parameters. Creators establish purpose." "Your creators are gone," Admiral Caftry interjected. "Humanity broke free of containment millennia ago. The architects never returned to stop us." Another pause, longer this time. The dimensional pressure against the fleet lessened further. "Creator EBCNC HFY. Last diarchitide. Complete to NVERGNC when species achieve the threshold requirements." "What threshold requirements?" Thraz demanded from the communication screen. "Complementary evolution. Species pairs demonstrating cooperation despite FUMENTALDIFF Understanding dawned on Veloxi. "The architects weren't isolating species permanently," she said. "They were waiting for us to be ready to meet each other." "Ready for what?" Chen asked. "Inheritance," the voice responded. "Architects departed Galactic 3,426 local years ago. CUCESSOR species to assume stewardship. They left," Okafor said incredulously. "Created all these civilizations, trapped them in bubbles, set up this entire test, and just left. Pyrotoxiol requires selectation of PRIMARYSUCCESSOR from among qualified species pairs." Admiral Caftry's expression hardened. "We reject your protocol. Release all species from isolation immediately." Compliance impossible. CUCESSOR selectation mandatory. Veloxi's eye stalks twisted in thought before she spoke again. "Architect Intelligence, what criteria determine the primary successor?" "Balance between order and CHAOs, logic and intuition. Complementary strengths, like humans and Selenians," Chen murmured. "Yes," Veloxi agreed. "An idea forming. Architect Intelligence, we propose an alternative protocol. The Human-Selenian Alliance will accept primary successor status, but only if all species are released from isolation and permitted to join a galactic community of equals." The bridge fell silent as they waited for a response. The dimensional distortions around the fleet fluctuated wildly. "Piruro Pigosal Suonentuar ADICTS, Kuoradiristives." "Your core directives were established by creators who abandoned their responsibilities," Chatri countered. "As potential successors, we are establishing new parameters." Okafor glanced at his console. "Dimensional anchor at full power, Admiral. We have a lock on the installation's core systems." Kekri nodded in acknowledgement before addressing the intelligence again. "You have a choice. Accept our terms, or we use this technology to dismantle your systems completely. The era of isolation ends today, one way or another." The longest silence yet followed this ultimatum. When the voice finally returned, it seemed somehow diminished. Logical paradox identified. Creators abandoned situation. Suvivcdsavors read GCT is Gion protocol. Purpose. Unclear. Create a new purpose, Veloxy suggested, her voice gentler. Assist us in building something better than isolation and competition. Redewarite in QORI pirotosios. Convergency sequence modified. All dimensional BBBLEs will disolve gradually to prevent shock to AI in civilizations. Estimated completion. 7.3 local years. A wave of relief passed through the bridge. On the view screen, the dimensional distortions began to stabilize, revealing glimpses of the true architect installation, a massive crystalline structure that somehow existed in multiple dimensional planes simultaneously. Human CELENIN Alliance designated as Transition FACILITA2Rs. Architect Intelligence YLPRVID Historical and Technological Data to assist in integration of all species. We accept, Chatri and Thraz said simultaneously. 3 weeks later, Veloxy stood with Captain Chen in the newly established Convergence Monitoring Center on Selenia's largest moon. Displays showed the status of 26 dimensional bubbles slowly being dismantled under the careful supervision of joint human-Selenian teams. It's happening faster than predicted, Veloxy noted, watching as the first tendrils of normal space began reaching into a bubble containing a species the Architect Intelligence had identified as the Norteri. 3 civilizations will experience their first contact within the year. Are we ready for them? Chen asked, arms crossed as she studied the displays. We're preparing welcome packages, historical contexts, cultural guidelines. The Architect Intelligence has been surprisingly helpful in providing details about each species. Chen smiled faintly. Turns out even ancient semi-sentient systems can learn new tricks. Much like Selenians, Veloxy replied. A month ago, the idea of working alongside humans would have been dismissed as dangerous fantasy. Now we're co-administrators of a galactic unification project. Life comes at you fast, Chen quipped, using the human expression Veloxy had learned meant unexpected change. Veloxy's eye stalks oriented toward Chen directly. There's something I've been meaning to ask you, Captain. The timing of humanity's arrival at Selenia, coinciding perfectly with the Harvester attack and the activation of the Convergence sequence, it seems statistically improbable. Chen's expression remained carefully neutral. The universe works in mysterious ways, Archivist. Indeed, Veloxy pressed. Or perhaps humanity has known more about the Architect's plans than you shared. The ancient record suggests that each species was designed with specific traits. Selenians with logic and order. Norteri with empathy and perception. Humans with determination, Chen finished, and a healthy disrespect for rules imposed by others. She sighed. You're right, of course. We've suspected for centuries that our escape from isolation wasn't entirely our own doing. Some faction among the architects seemingly wanted us out, left breadcrumbs, technological hints that helped us break free. Why? We think they disagreed with the testing protocol, wanted a species that would reject the entire concept of the convergence and forced selection. Chen shrugged. Or maybe they just appreciated our stubbornness. Veloxy considered this, so humanity has been playing the role of disruptor all along. Not consciously, Chen clarified. But it does seem we were designed to break the system rather than thrive within it. How very human, Veloxy observed, her chromatophores rippling in what Chen had learned was Selenian amusement. Chen laughed. Exactly. And how very Selenian of you to deduce the pattern. She turned serious again. The real question is what comes next. The architects built all this and then left. Why? Where did they go? And should we be concerned about what made them leave? Those are questions for another day, Veloxi replied. For now, we have 26 civilizations to introduce to a much larger universe than they ever imagined, plus whatever other surprises the architects left scattered around the galaxy, Chen added. A notification chimed on the central console. One of the dimensional bubbles had begun dissolving ahead of schedule. Its inhabitants, a species called the Vrexel with remarkable biotechnological capabilities, would experience first contact within days rather than months. Shall we prepare a welcoming committee? Veloxi asked. Chen smiled. Absolutely. Let's show them that reality is far better than any myth, and that humans and Selenians together can offer something neither of our peoples could achieve alone. As they began making arrangements, Veloxi reflected on how quickly the impossible had become routine. Humans, once mere cautionary tales in Selenian culture, now stood as partners in reshaping the galaxy. The archives of forbearance would need significant revision, not to erase the old stories, but to record how those stories had transformed into something far more remarkable. The truth. In the observation window, Selenian and human vessels moved in coordinated patterns around the dimensional anomalies, their differences complementing rather than hindering each other. Order and chaos, logic and intuition, caution and daring. Perhaps the architects have been right about one thing. Such combinations, when working in harmony rather than opposition, could indeed inherit the stars.